talking about preparing the XR workforce of tomorrow. We're going to be talking about what the XR workforce even means with some really fantastic panelists. So I'd like to welcome to the stage our moderator for today, Adam Fowler, who's the founder of Civil Economics. Welcome, Adam. Anatola Araba, founder of Reimagined Story Lab. Deborah Isaac, community mentor for Side Effects. Nigel Tierney, executive creative director at Yahoo. And Reagan Brown, creative technologist at Magnipus. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much for being here. And I have nobody's microphone. I have my own microphone. Thank you.
Awesome. Cheers. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited about this panel. I think it's a topic that is super important, but I think is not widely understood, including those of us that research these sorts of questions. So we wanted to throw up a slide to say what the hell is XR and what does it stand for. It's a bucket term for things that extend reality. And really, you can think about all sorts of technological changes over the years, especially in arts and entertainment, as being some step away from human interaction, right? The photograph was thought about one step away, and all the way down to kind of an immersive world of virtual reality. So this amazing panel of professionals are each kind of working in a different little area of something that is under that extended reality umbrella. And I think what we're excited to talk about today is, what does that look like? How do you skill around something that's evolving, changing? I think the earlier panels, the elephant in the room was like, okay, film and television might be in a period of condensing in terms of its size here in Los Angeles. What are some adjacent opportunities for narrative, media, storytelling? And so excited to talk with this panel today. My first question is, each of you, maybe we'll start at the end. What do you do? How do you describe yourself? And what does that look like?
Hello, everyone. My name is Reagan Brown. First, I want to start. What do I describe myself as? A futurist. So if you can see, I'm a futurist. Hi, my name is Reagan Brown. I am a creative technologist at Magnopus. A lot of people ask me, like, what does that even mean? My background is in computer science and computer engineering, but I have been an artist my entire life, and I think that's what I lead with. So in the work that I do, I either will hit a lot of design work or engineering, doing some programming work, or maybe even some artwork, maybe some 3D modeling. When it comes to immersive spaces, using augmented reality, virtual reality, or leveraging AI. I'm really into location-based experiences. Museums are really my thing. I believe that art is kind of the head of, and then everything kind of trickles from art. I think creativity is really the soul of technology and everything that encompasses it. I, in my personal life, am just an Unreal Engine generalist. I'm a techie. I'm a painter. I like to create my own short animated films using motion capture. And I'm just a person that likes to try everything. So definitely, I'm excited to be on this panel. I believe that there are so many opportunities in the future for creative people who are interested in immersing themselves in technology, and we just have to be ready for that and create the jobs that we wish to see and the change that we wish to be in the world. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nigel Tierney. I was joking this earlier, I am Irish, that's why I sound like this, don't worry. Not a good excuse for how I look. So I grew up on a farm shoveling cow poo in Ireland, and here I am now. No, I actually, there goes the water. I actually came to America and actually started off in a community college background. I studied computer. Actually, I flip-flopped. I want to be an artist. I wish I was a good artist. I'm not a great artist. I was much better at computer science, but I realized I can use computer science to create imagery, and so that was my cheat code around it. So today I'm the executive creative director at Yahoo. We've launched a variety of immersive platforms, actually the largest open-faced, non-app-based immersive platform with Yahoo Immersive. Before that, I was acquired as part of Riot, which was an immersive studio, RYOT. We created a whole bunch of location-based, all types of projects across Snap, Meta. But before that, I came from traditional animation background. I'm an animation technical director, creative producer. So, gone all the multi-hyphenate energy that you were bringing, and you'll probably hear it all along the way, just as there's many different titles in XR. And so, yeah, so I just care about creating meaningful content, and I love cartoons, and I just love beautiful visuals. So I kind of went all over the shop there.
No, that's
yeah,
great.
Yeah, started in Ireland. That's where
We're all learning together. Yeah.
My name is Deborah Isaac. I'm an artist and an educator. I am the community mentor at Side Effects, the makers of Houdini. I also started Houdini School a couple years ago. I also run Houdini battles and co-organize the Los Angeles Houdini user group. And I also teach at various universities like Drexel and USC. I would describe myself as an artist and an educator, and super passionate about teaching people and inspiring others, and very future thinking as well. I'm fascinated with the future, fascinated with what's going to happen with technology and art. Really interested in science as well. I also, I had a previous company where we did work with augmented reality and with some pretty big clients. So hopefully I can give some insight today. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm very excited to be on this esteemed panel, and I hope everyone's having an amazing day and is excited about this last session. My name is Anatola, and I am a filmmaker, futurist, and founder of Reimagine Story Lab, which is my innovation hub where I create media content and immersive experiences. And I got into this world of XR through a filmmaking background. I went to NYU, and I created different short films and animated projects. And I realized that extended reality technologies was a way I felt that you could really bring your imagination to life in brand new ways. And I felt it was even more unrestricted than regular storytelling technologies. And so that's what really made me excited about these tools, because I believe that imagination is the greatest tool of humanity. And so, yeah, I'm excited to dive into some ways that we can make these tools and resources for young people getting into these fields.
It's a really cool panel. I want to take a lot of notes. So I think there's always a lot of buzzwords in anything tech related, right? A few years ago, it was we were all going to be in the metaverse. I think we kind of, in especially the education space, get a little bit burned out on the new buzzword. From where we sit in the labor market analysis side, we don't see this set of things as a buzzword at all. We see this as kind of an extension of some existing technology, existing ways of telling stories. I would love to hear from each of you what opportunities you're seeing from where you sit. And if that's a project you've just finished up, something you've worked on, I would love to hear those, like, what do you see as the actual opportunities for someone that's saying, what is an XR job and where does it exist? I'd love to hear a little bit about what those opportunities look like, because I'm hearing multi-hyphenate, I'm hearing multidisciplinary, and sometimes seeing things that are in between traditional boundaries is hard. So I'd love to use your eyes and kind of see what you see. Reagan, we can start down with you.
All right. So what do I see as far as the opportunities? You mentioned being multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. I think that we're coming into an age where we're multi-hyphenated people. Like, give me a second. Sorry, I gotta breathe. I think we're coming into an age where we are seeing that we have all different perspectives, and those different perspectives contribute to how we solve problems. And so in a lot of my journey, I've been kind of trying to figure out, okay, what's in my DNA that makes me special, and how can I leverage what's in the present now to reimagine the type of future that I want to have. And so I think some of the opportunities that are available are looking to what makes you special. What is your already current interest? How do you already want to impact your community? And how can we use things like AI? How can we use things like VR to create shared experiences with one another, to elevate our communities, to give that access, to break those boundaries? Some of the the jobs that are coming now I'm seeing are being created on the fly, right? I recently just connected with someone at USC, and she's doing a project using motion capture for science, sports science, and to help athletes figure out their performance better based on real data. And these aren't things that have been currently have been in our present. These are things that are now being created as we're going. And so really looking at what is important to us and what kind of skills and what kind of non-traditional skills, the creative skills that can help use these immersive texts to elevate, has been something that I'm noticing in the different opportunities. Sorry, y'all caught me off guard. I didn't know I was going to be first. I was
Oh,
thinking
I'm
through
sorry.
it.
I'm sorry. Nigel, what do you see from where you're sit?
Well, I think in terms of, because there's like a few layers to your question about like opportunity, but also like the buzzwords of it all. Like, having written many of these buzzwords, like getting into like when CG was being formed to then in a meaningful way to XR, 5G, NFT, metaverse, AI right now. Foundationally, you're a computer scientist, you're an artist, you're leveraging technology and tools. Like you're still learning these very foundational things that you can then apply to new innovative ways, right? So talking about XR, XR is leveraging game engine technology. It's leveraging tools like Houdini. It's Unreal. It's using CG, VFX pipelines. It's all of those components are still as relevant now as they were kind of for each of those hype cycles. What is the value right now? And what's exciting? I think there's incredible. I think there's been sometimes this missed opportunity with XR, particularly where like the technology, the hardware, and the content dollars have never been fully aligned. And now we're actually in that new version with the Vision Pro, for example, being an incredible piece of hardware. And who's providing the content for that hardware is now where that's a big opportunity, because that headset in particular is incredible. But also location-based experiences, they collapsed with the pandemic and now have re-emerged, and we're seeing investing and engagement there globally, in terms of where Europe, China, and the US are investing. So in following those types of dollars, but again, stripping back the dollars to why. People want to get out, people want to experience, they want to experience things together. Even when you're at, I don't know, has anyone tried the Meta Quest? My favorite experience is playing chess with someone. Because it's like, oh, I'm really with you in that experience. It's like, such a, I could have, my son and I play chess, and I'm like, let's go and actually play chess. But anyway, it goes back to those kind of basic elements. So I think that's where opportunity, and in terms of like the skill sets going into those, like again, always making sure you're cutting edge, but really you need to know computer science, or you need to know the foundations of CG and art to develop into those tools. So I think that's where like the future and like the current are actually always going to meet.
Yeah, and to add on what both of you said, I think the key also is to follow the hardware technology. Yeah. So wherever there's hardware, you're gonna need content. All of these companies making the new Vision Pro or whatever the new headset is or whatever the new platforms are, they need content to fill that, and they need programmers to interface between all of that. And then also, to your point, you can also make opportunities. So there's opportunities out there waiting for you, but there's also opportunities that you can create, because maybe you can imagine creating an experience that no one's ever seen before, and then all of a sudden that opportunity gets created.
Yes, I agree that, to not be cliche, that the possibilities are really endless when it comes to these technologies, because there is so many things that you can do with them. And I also think it's very fascinating because, in a way, art has always been technical. From even if you think about painting or making a portrait, that the most realistic paintings, you might have to measure the angles and then do some ruler lines. And then now, if you want to create a magical world with fairies and unicorns, you might need to open a game engine, do some code, do some other things. But I think that beyond all of the different tech that there is to utilize, at the end of the day, it really is about the experience that you're creating, and then the technology is really a tool to get there. And there are a lot of opportunities that I wasn't even aware of in the XR world by entering into it. I know that I was able to. I first created a 3D animated short film called Afro Algorithms that explores AI and bias. And it's a story about the world's first AI leader of Earth in a Afrofuturist narrative. And I realized different funding resources for XR storytelling projects that were there. And from creating this project, I felt that the XR storytelling world and ecosystem felt a lot less saturated and established than the traditional filmmaking industry. If you think about, we're in LA, so I'm sure everyone knows about the different Hollywood and big companies and gatekeepers and all of that. But because this is so new and it's evolving so fast, it's really a new frontier that people are still welcoming and interested in new ideas and new people, which is why I think it's a very fertile place for young people to go into. And so also that project ended up it ended up being acquired into a museum that was embedded in a metal disc that was bolted to the side of a rocket ship that was sent to the moon in February. And so, speaking of the endless possibilities, XR can bring you to the moon.
That is wild. Congratulations.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So we've got a group of community college professors, faculty, deans, the whole story here in the room. Let's talk about career pathways, and if, like the other panels, that isn't a clean, linear path, what does that look like if we're going to transition into thinking about and opening up for questions how they build ecosystems at their campuses to support this kind of work? What does that look like? But is there a career pathway? And anybody can jump in, or would you like to talk about your own, or there's some things looking back on how you got here that are really important, you think that are really key kind of milestones?
I'd like to point out some challenges that you guys probably face, because you're in a climate where there's so many softwares to teach and so much technology. How do you choose to teach this over that? And I want to say, hey, I've got the perfect answer for you, but I don't. I just want to acknowledge the challenge here, and also the fact that, maybe part of this is how do we teach students to be self-learners, and how do we teach them just enough that they can go off and explore on their own? How do we teach them to self-organize, create clubs, learn together, get creative with how to teach them? Because the job hopping is just gonna increase. The amount of retraining is only gonna increase. So it's not only about, hey, we gotta teach them skills, we gotta teach them all this software, but we gotta teach them about how to be adapting, how to adapt, how to change.
Yeah, to add to that, like when I started at DreamWorks, it was all proprietary software. There was their own render, their own painting tools, so I couldn't have learned that until I started there, but it was the foundations, it was the principles that kind of I was able to translate into those, and kind of talk a little bit about my own journey. Again, talking specifically at community college, there wasn't like a CG program, but I knew I wanted to create CG. I wanted to be at Pixar and DreamWorks. That was kind of but there was an incredible computer science program that, there was a professor that had, knowledge of OpenGL, and we started to dig in and sculpt the course a little bit to help me on side projects and stuff like that. And now that Tower Community College in Virginia, like they have a CG program as well as part of their associate's degree, or entry level into that. So I think, to that adaptability, right, to that kind of entrepreneurial energy, that like if you see that energy, it's like, yes, this is maybe not part of this curriculum, but like how do we build around it to kind of include that? And again, I think with XR, it's based off a whole variety of components. It's the art, the technology, the producing aspect of it, like financial management, the pitching creative aspect, that's huge. Like every one of you has probably pitched your way to get a project done, right? And that's public speaking class. That's all. So there's, in a way, there's how you package that all together to like be a self-sufficient seller of your own ideas and creating those ideas.
Yeah, something I think is just very helpful in a journey is like, one, allowing your students to be curious and allowing them to fail and showing them and the range of things and possibilities that they could potentially encounter and face with. I think something that really helped me in my journey, I was a alumni of the GRX Immersive Labs fellowship, where we learned Unreal Engine, we learned mocap, we learned virtual production, and our mentor Alton Glass basically said, here are the tools, now what do you think you can do with them? And I think sometimes I've noticed in corporations or these mass kind of institutions, they say, here is our world, these are the tools, come use it and come into our world and use them in how we want to. You need to be this, you need to be this is the type of job that you want to want. Instead of saying, here is what's possible, here are so many different ways that it can be done, now what do you want to do with it? I think being able to fail and being able to play and be curious has been one of the most beneficial things for me in trusting a mentor or a teacher and getting their perspective on how I can grow in a space, because a lot of the time we are just learning. Like Anatola said, this is as far as a kind of untouched territory, it really is. People are in R&D mode constantly. And so what you want to inspire is that curiosity to say, okay, what's that next level for you? What is important to you? And how can you take these tools that like all this access that's in this present to then create something for your communities, your people, your friends, for yourself. I really think mentorship and the network and just being able to just be a human has been one of the biggest parts that has helped me get to where I have been, for sure. Because there's the technology aspect for sure, but there's also that human portion.
Yeah, and I love what everyone is touching on here, and I agree that there are specific tools that is very helpful to learn across different fields, from AR, VR, game design, etc. And then there's also the higher level things that translates across a lot of different industries, but is super applicable to this one, from team management, teamwork, leadership, pitching, and all those things are really fundamental and are equally as valuable and can even take you far in a career without certain technical skills. And one fascinating thing is that the technology is really evolving so quickly as well. So maybe the software you learn today might be different tomorrow. And for example, for the project Afro Algorithms that I mentioned earlier, the rendering time for that 14 minutes of animation was about 6 months to render the project. And speaking of DreamWorks, larger animated movies like The Lion King might take 2 years of just rendering and exporting the animation. Whereas with tools like real-time animation with Unreal Engine or Unity, you're able to animate the same thing in real time, cutting down the time of the whole workflow. And then looking into the future with tools like AI, sorry to open the AI rabbit hole, but it's also entering into the 3D landscape, where maybe you're able to create a 3D model off of a prompt instead of having to model it from scratch with a team of people and having that additional cost. And so I think that could be a lot of disruption in the technology, and it is quickly evolving over time. And of course, whatever the industry standard technology for the field is right now, I think would be a great thing to start with, whether Unreal Engine or different Unity for AR filters. But I think the bigger picture skills and the soft skills are really important and valuable, of just how you can put a project together, how you can create a world, or creating different interactions in the story, and how assets work, and that all those things will apply through different softwares and systems.
I was going to add one thing is we're obviously talking a lot too about like the creative XR, but there's a lot, like my initial background was in medical XR and doing VR for gait rehabilitation for stroke patients and things like that. And that was just to try and, again, to go back to an even more foundational question, like what is the use of this tool and what does it unlock? Why would I engage in, if there was physical therapists that wanted to help stroke patients improve their gait rehab. Well, maybe this is a tool that could allow them to feel less embarrassed because they don't have a counselor telling them to straighten up. Maybe it captures real-time data, so they're not building in real-time habits. So like that was like still from a medical background, so it's in a way I just want to add that it is also just an additional tooling layer for a lot of existing industry. Like a lot of the success and financial growth in business is using these headsets for surgery, for operating factories, and for pre-visualization, like for simulating rockets going to the moon. I've gone through versions of that to make sure, like the tests and iterations. So I know this is specific to like the tools that can create that, but I just want to also like it is something that's very helpful for just a lot of business and industry as well in courses. So
I would like to add just one thing for the curriculum developers out there. The way I would approach it is to give them a survey of all these different things, and you can bring in people to speak, guest speakers and field trips, or have them touch upon all these things, but then also later give room for immersion. So I think there's balance of like learning about all these different things, but then once they have that taste, then they can get deeper into something, create a portfolio piece that they can show the world.
What does a portfolio look like in this space?
Pretty things.
yeah,
Always.
I am visual, like, so I'm always like looking at reels first, people's instas and stuff like that. But then when it comes to the actual immersive content, if it's AR, let's load it up in the device. VR, let me get the build, and if it's some location-based experience, and there's an opportunity to experience that. But it is pretty visuals first, because like obviously we want to build out a great resume and all of that, but at the end of the day, I'm looking, when I'm building, like I've been fortunate to build teams of hundreds of artists and engineers to build and deploy multi-million-dollar feature film and CG and immersive projects, and I'm just like, okay, look dope, they can do this. Like, is it? I always go like the wedding photographer analogy, where if you look at a wedding photographer's portfolio and you don't see the one picture that you want to be your wedding photo in there, then don't hire that wedding photographer. And that's kind of what I see. But I will say there is a bias to that too. And actually with Riot, the company that I was head of content at, it was also, how do we tell stories for the voices that would never get to tell stories? And so building a pipeline to allow up-and-coming engineers, artists, storytellers, directors to be able to get into there is also very key, and having a system that allows for that kind of open framework for that.
Am I hearing you correctly? Am I hearing you correctly when you say an Instagram presence may mean more to you than a Harvard degree?
Yeah. For me personally. Not I'm saying everyone, but for me. And I'm terrible at Instagram, by the way. I dread, I'm like, don't go on my Instagram. I'm like, this guy is trash. But it does, like, I look at the websites and reels. I'm very video oriented as well. I like to just see what the cut is and how that's built out. And then project breakdowns when it's real. Like when I want to talk to this person, it's like, okay, how did you do this? What was the troubleshooting? What was the framing? What was the budgets, that constraints? What was the RFP? Like, what did the client come to you? What was your initial inception? Like, why did you do this original IP? All of those things are like, because I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a partner with you for 6 months, a year. Actually, when I was at DreamWorks, there was an incredible creative development exec there that they would have like these half-hour pitch sessions. And I remember talking to them, and they were like, I was like, how do you even digest the ideas that they're going to? I don't. This is like speed dating. I'm just trying to see if I want to work with this person for a year. We'll fix the idea. We'll fix the story. It's just, is it this person, like, somebody I want to be with for a while, So, and visually, Instagram and Reels and websites, I'm still rely heavily on that.
And adding on to the portfolio aspect of it, I would also say to focus the portfolio, because I think there's different quadrants. So one, for say 3D things, there's a big difference between character and environment. And I would say that at some point your portfolio, if you're looking to be hired, that it's helpful to maybe have a portfolio of environments if you want to create worlds versus a portfolio of characters if you're going to create people, characters. And also between realistic and stylized, because I think that's very different and broad too, because you can go for the simulating real world environments, maybe for architecture or feature films or car experience, real estate, whatever it is, versus stylized where you want it to look like its own world with its own rules, because I think those are all different rabbit holes that you can go in. And when I'm putting a team together, it's sometimes you need certain a background animator versus character. And I agree that it might not have to be the Instagram, but it could be it's the portfolio wherever they choose to place that tells you so much about them. And I think that your portfolio speaks so much for you. I know that just from looking at people's artworks that they created and seeing, oh, this would be perfect for my project, like the wedding photo, that I've felt so attached to them. And then when I actually get to speak to them, I realize that I didn't even know who they were through online. They're a different voice, or I thought they would be, some young person, and they could be a totally different person. And that process has led me to put teams together that are very international just from following the portfolio and not where they're from. And led me to work with animators who were based in Nigeria, with background animators from South Africa and composers from France, and create such an international team. But that's because it was the portfolio that spoke, and then they happened to be across the globe versus, say, the university place that you're going to, or et cetera, et cetera. So yeah.
I think sometimes when people are multidisciplinary, they feel like they need to have a separate platform or place for, okay, this is where my art goes. This is where my tech stuff goes. This is where my creative direction goes. And I think some of the portfolios that have been most impressive to me have just been the ones where they've been able to make it a cohesive thing and a cohesive thought. Definitely telling a story. When I look at someone's portfolio, I want to see what is their personality, and then how do they fit all of those different aspects of themselves into this one story that I'm seeing here, this snapshot of their life and their life's work. Not their life's work, but just their work. Because then I think about how can I apply that to an actual job that we have. If I am looking for someone who is a technologist of some sort, but they have this creative eye, and I can see that in how they express themselves in their portfolios. That is most impressive to me, because I know, okay, when they're trying to solve problems, and when they're in the room and we're brainstorming, we're in a session, I know that I can not only rely on their technical savvy, but also they're going to look at that and look at it from a point of an eye. What is the story that I'm telling? And so a lot of the time when I'm looking at portfolio, the cohesion also is just important. And putting your personality, being funny, I'm not even gonna lie to you. My portfolio has me in a XR headset and I flick the camera off, and it's it's kind of funny, just something that kind of gives people, who you are as a person. Yeah.
In the few minutes we have left before we open it up for questions, I would love to hear from a labor market economist, which is very different. I think about the community college system as being a real place of diversity compared to maybe different four-year institutions or other places. What are the things you would say that are baseline, somebody needs to have an Unreal subscription somewhere on campus? I know there's an overwhelming amount we've talked about softwares, but what are the baseline things that can be made available if a department or something isn't able to stand up a specific program? What are some baseline, whether it's resources, softwares? I'd love to hear what are things that an institution like a community college could lean in on in the intermediate term?
Well, I'm super biased, so I'm going to say Houdini. But Houdini is one of many pieces of software, and please come up to me afterwards if you're interested to know more. But the education group there at Side Effects is incredible. But of course, Maya is industry standard as well, and I know Blender and Cinema 4D are also taught widely. So those are the four big ones, I'd say. Probably 3D Max as well. So that's on the CG side.
Yeah, I would also just add like game engine, Unity, and Unreal. In terms of like the 3D packages, love Houdini. I built a whole Houdini team. It's dope. But Blender is free, right, for a lot of people and stuff like that. So, but also in terms of resources, are those academic resources like the side effects community, like having like a landing place that shows you can access that community, you can access Udemy, LinkedIn Learning, all of those other additional resources that obviously you don't have to necessarily lean on internal resources to build. Yes, software. Yeah, the game engines are a massive one, and when it comes to this, I think access to headsets, but that's actually a really difficult thing because they do change quite a bit. I mean, if you were to go to my studio, it feels like a museum of, I literally have a zombie with a Google Glass on it. But, 4 dead magic leaps and things like that. So I do know that that's also is a challenge. So I wonder if there's like also library programs where you can kind of work with having a set of headsets and things like that you can swap in and kind of work with, like I know Meta has a program that can allow you to get like their latest headsets and stuff like that into, and leverage that and be able to swap that so you're not like stuck with the old ones. So yeah, I think there's a bit of a going into the certain companies that are like the main marketplaces and seeing what tools that you can provide as well, not just get a whole bunch of subscriptions to Adobe and things like that you may not be as useful sometimes. Adobe's useful. That ended weird, but I'm just saying. Yeah. So.
Just to echo what they were saying, I definitely believe that, like, yes, you should have a game engine, you should have a 3D modeling software of some kind, but also in those places where we find that we may not have budget to necessarily get these softwares, relying on some AI solutions also can be very helpful. I'm going to give you an example. When I first started kind of learning about motion capture, didn't have a suit, didn't have the anything, but if you've heard of AI, Move AI, that's where you're using your phone, and so there are a lot of different types of AI-based solutions that are now more accessible to people that you can kind of promote to your students, so that they're able to make their processes a little bit easier. So definitely those core like game engines and modeling services for sure, but in those places where there may be a need and not necessarily a have for resources, definitely rely on those AI. And if you ever want to know a list of AI tools that can be used for 3D, definitely hit me up, because that's my thing. I really enjoy using those, because at one point, didn't have access to them. Didn't
Actually,
have subscriptions.
I have a interesting anecdote for that. For example, facial capture for a lot of animation studios for a long time was this proprietary and like sold tool. But hands up, how many people have animated in this audience? A couple. All right. How many people have used like a Memoji or any face? You've animated. It's the same technology. Apple bought it and then deployed it, and that's like facial capture, like a high-end. And so to move AI and these iterations, so all of that to say, your phone is super powerful. LiDAR scanners on iPhones to create 3D assets, right? Like a whole program where, majority of your students have these devices already, so you can learn how to model and paint and texture and view it in AR in real time, deploy it in Facebook and Snap or any of these things. So just to say too, there's actually like a lot of students and have a resource already, and if not, phones as an additional tool and hardware to be able to provide. It's very democratized in that way.
Yeah, completely. And like everybody said, there's a lot of the best tools are free, like Blender and some of the AR platforms that you can add onto Snapchat or on Instagram. And beyond all the softwares, I think everyone mentioned it, from Unity, Unreal, the basics, Cinema 4D. But community really is such a powerful thing too, because especially a community of students can just fuel each other and give each other new programs that are coming out, that they're testing out, and say, oh, look at this or what I made. And so I think cultivating spaces for community in an educational context is just as powerful as providing those equipment. So I think encouraging students to create their own XR, whether it's student group, club, etc., or to let them know about others that are out there in the world. There's a lot of big ones that welcome young people and young voices. Ones that come to mind is XR Women, which is a group, one of the largest networks for women in spatial computing. And they're looking for students to create student chapters of XR Women so that people can, just create their own using their already built community. There's amazing conferences like AWE, that's one of the largest conferences on XR. And being in those spaces is so powerful to bounce ideas off of. Reagan and I are working on a community for Black and Brown innovators called Reimagine Immersive. And so there's a lot of communities that can help people in that journey because it can be intimidating. And YouTube University also helps.
Do we have questions? I'm kind of obsessed, and I hate that we have to end, but yeah, let's do questions.
Okay, so this is such a great panel discussion and something that I'm really interested in. I met Alton like several years ago. I work on a immersive multimedia interactive theatrical experience with movement healing and sound healing, right? And so it's an in-person kind of thing, and we don't record because of the kinds of things that come out from these experiences. But we did do a 360 VR of one of the stories that was very popular and that had sex and they were able to see it. But we did this in 2019 with USC, and so now technology has changed so much since then. And I'm very passionate about creating this space in the metaverse, but I don't even know like where to begin and how do you monetize it in a way that to pay the programmers and designers for doing the work to create this space. And it's also social justice, and I would want it to be free and accessible to everyone. So it's like, how does someone begin a project like that?
I can specifically on financing. There's obviously when it's content in terms of like headset or mobile, it's either your paid model or your advertising model. However, there's still a lot of investing that comes from brands experiences. I've launched quite a bunch of projects with Procter and Gamble that steps in around their cause-based journeys and initiatives and things like that. So you can I reach out to larger brands who want to create a marketing moment most times, but still being leveraging their experience in wanting to be an innovative company. Like that's a heavy dollar area. It has contracted, I would say. Like I had a bunch of projects that we did like 2019, 2020, right at the top of 2020. But again, right now with new headsets, still social media is massive. So like, how do you create like social bites? I like that you created a 360 version of that. Riot, we had created like hundreds of 360 content back in 2016 when we were originally acquired, and I thought 360 content was kind of an old thing. And then I directed Bad Bunny's 360 album, and 2.4 billion views, the most watched 360 content in 2022. Right, so that was like a single camera and then record, So there are those accessible moments that can also make it like scale. That's like, so we are able to build ads against that on YouTube 360 while also having a more immersive headset that's kind of a little bit more it's a smaller marketplace. Like the more advanced, like if it's a museum experience, right, you can only let in 200 people a day or whatever your throughput is, and like you have to start to charge for that and figure out ways. And if you don't want to charge, you get a brand to come in and be the title sponsor and come in and work through that. So I'm saying it very hand-wavy in a way that I know it's not easy, but I also mean that that's actually like, that's where the pitching and the innovation, it's like you go, okay, this time wants to do this. Salesforce wants to pay for something, let's make that happen. And you kind of build, like, that's unfortunately where more of the work is in actually building the pieces. But once you get it, it's amazing, because then everyone gets to experience it. So I know it didn't answer everything, but I think I'll let the others answer around, like, where the people are consuming it. So
I'd say there's two different models here. There's one, I love this idea of the brands paying for it. I think that's really great, especially if you don't want your customers to pay anything. The other way is get the customers to pay. And then in that way, you could do some kind of profit share with your developers and everyone working for you. Otherwise, you want to minimize your risk so you don't go under. So if it is the brands paying, then everything should be fixed. So all of your contracts with all of your developers should be a fixed amount of money, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I love the sounds of your project, and I've been very nerdy about metaverse experiences. So, as for places to host it, because there's existing platforms that you can just upload a space onto, and then it's already really accessible, easy for people to join. And they're able to join on their computer or even their mobile phone and in a VR headset. And some that come to mind is Spatial IO, which is totally free unless you want up to 500 people in your event. Then it's about $20 a month. But it's just really easy for people to join and for multiple people to join at a time and have a social experience. So that's Spatial IO. There's also Mona, which is the Monaverse, which is another great metaverse platform, where that one you can enter on your desktop or a VR headset, and it's different. It has a different vibe and design, different avatars, and there's even things like there's a Fortnite Unreal Engine plugin where if you build a world in Unreal Engine, you can upload it into the Fortnite universe. So depending on your demographic, the age group, maybe they're Fortniters or even Roblox, you can consider worlds in there. And as for the team that you need, if you want to do it on a skeleton or get the bare necessities, I would say what you need is if the world is not designed yet, I'm not sure which part of the process you're on. Okay. Okay, nice. Yeah, so you need the fundamentals of a concept designer that doesn't even need to know 3D, but can draw out how the world can look just on a sketch or a regular way that you can visualize it and imagine how the spaces and rooms and environment can look, and then bring that on over to a 3D developer. It is possible to create a whole world with just one 3D developer that does their thing, and ensuring that they're familiar with the program and ensuring that they're familiar with how to bring it from the program to the platform, because they have certain file size requirements, packaging requirements, and so you don't want that to be a messy situation. But it's definitely possible, and it's possible to do it without a crazy big corporate budget too. And it's definitely possible to just invite people into the world and start to get a community going.
I would also consider a freemium model.
Premium for sure, free. Anatola just gave a bunch of really great resources, like Spatial IO. I wanted to add another resource. It's called Oko, and it's one that Magnopus actually we make. And so what that is we're trying to kind of bring down the barrier of entry to being able to create your own spaces. So maybe you want to access a shared experience with one another from your phone, or if someone is more of a game dev, they can access it from Unreal Engine, or if someone is web-based, they can access it from the web, but we're all connected in that shared experience. And I think it is free. There is a subscription once you increase the number of people, but you could do that right now and take some assets that you find on Sketchfab, drop them into the world, and people are able to see that on their phones. And so platforms like that, platform like Spatial IO, do make it a little easier. Now you went well-being and spiritual with me a little bit, so I'm gonna go with you as well. I really think community is also a way of kind of starting these projects. Sometimes when you don't have money but shared vision with people, you know, that's kind of how things get started. Anatola and I met at a XR meetup, and she said, you know, she had a virtual museum and I had a physical museum, and we were like, we want to do museums together. How do we do that? And so through shared connections of people and just talking about what your passions and goals are, they may not be the ones to do it for you, or they may not be the ones to have what you need, but they may know someone that does. And so we talk a lot about community because it really is so important to really making your dreams come true. Because maybe we don't have money, but we may be able to barter services in a way. Or, you know, I'll develop this world if you give me classes, you know, realistic ways. And like when we don't have budget, and just connecting with people and shared vision is also a great way to kind of get a project going. So.
And grants. I forgot grants.
Grants.
Lots of grants.
Grants.
Get a grant.
Sure,
Oh, yeah,
definitely
yeah.
grants. Yeah.
Well, any final questions? Wrap it up is what I'm getting. Thank you. This panel was truly phenomenal. Please ask them questions. Stay around if you have
Thank you,
questions.
everyone.
We're very lucky to have them. Thank you all.